Okay, so good morning, everyone. Let's go see if we're recording. Yes, we are. Alt tab. Okay, so since we were not able, well, me and a few others were not able to report during class time, I will do my reporting now in our little internet classroom here. So, what am I going to report to you guys today, this morning? We are going to talk about existential psychology, type of theory. It belongs to the theories of personality and was initially conceived by Rollo May. So, existential psychology, existential. That's not very. It's very far away. We just came from discussing the biological and the very science ones by Cattell and McCrane Costa. They had a very scientific approach. Well, now we're going to existential, which is not, I have to say, not that scientific. Although, let's go. So first, what is existentialism? What is existentialism now? Existentialism is actually a school of thought. Then this school of thought is grounded by a few tenets that you know that govern this entire school of thought. So first of these tenets is existence is more important than essence. So what does existence mean? Existence in terms of existentialism is we are always in a process of becoming more. We are always moving, always becoming something else. Meanwhile, essence is the opposite of this. While one is talking about moving, becoming, essence is staying still, being whatever you are, and you have no ability to change that. As an example of such, when in terms of existence, we're always doing something else. Essence is, for example, listing out all the different components of a person, and that's not very existentialist in thinking. So yeah, we're always becoming something, always moving. Humans aren't static. People are both the subject and the object. So what does this mean? Well, in terms of objectively, it means people are not just objects within the world. We are not things. We are living beings who have subjective thoughts. So not everything is the same for all of us. But we are also objects. So that's why we're subjective, because we all have our own separate thoughts. We are all subjective beings, but we are also objects in the guise that we exist in this world. We are here. We are bound by its laws. So that's why we have to think. Existentialism thinks that humans are both subject and object. Now, every life has meaning, and people will generally want to search for the meaning of their life. That is a foundation to existentialism. The next tenet is every person is responsible and has control over who we are and what we become. So this implies a very internal locus of control, I believe. So ultimately, each of us is responsible for who we are. Yes, so we are not what our parents teach us, what our religion, what our school, what our organizations tell us. We are all in control of ourselves. We turn what we want ourselves to become. Next, fifth is existentialism tries to stay away from theories as it dehumanizes human beings. So this kind of goes against seeing human beings as objects, although people are both subjects and objects. But yes, it tries to stay away from theories, even though this is TOP, because it makes humans less human. So okay, yeah, there we go. That's what existentialism is. So let's go to who made this form of existential psychology. That goes to Rollo May. So who is Rollo May? We're gonna dive into his biography over here. So, well, I'm just gonna read out the facts here. May did not have the best parents. His father was a secretary somewhere for an organization. He had to keep moving around to follow the organization. And according to him, his mother had very erratic behavior, not the best. Then, well, to escape his mother and his troublesome home, he'd often go to this river near his house and find inner peace there in his river by the house. Then, going into his education, 1930, in the year 1930, he went to school in Michigan State College, but he received his degree in English from Oberlin College in Ohio. So the reason he went out of that original college was because he became part of like this controversial student newspaper, and they had to kick him out. So yeah, he got his. So note, his original degree was in English, not in psychology, not like a lot of us. And then after that, after getting his degree, he went to Europe to travel around for 3 years, became a teacher on the second. So during these 3 years, he sort of followed the, if we're familiar with the journey of Eric Erickson, he went around Europe just pursuing arts, painting, whatever. And Rollo May pretty much did the same. However, in his second year, he kind of became, how shall I say, lonely. Then he wanted to search a new purpose. So there, he became a teacher. He started teaching what he learned from college. And then some notable events during his trips in Europe was in 1932 he attended a seminar hosted by Adler in Vienna. So there, I think you could say that was his first exposure into psychology because of that seminar hosted by Adler. Then, if we remember Adler, he created individual psychology. So that's him. 1933, he returned to the U.S. and entered a seminary, met the philosopher, and why did he do that? He wanted to seek the true meaning of life and such, like asking very big, ultimate questions. That's why he entered the seminary. Then he met the philosopher and theologian Paul Tillich, who inspired May with his philosophy. So, as you can see, May is slowly gaining more and more inspiration to construct his theory. Then Paul Tillich, I believe this is the philosopher who taught him a lot about existentialism and stuff. So in 1938, he graduated from the seminary, received a Master of Divinity degree, served as a pastor for 2 years. So, still pretty young, I believe. Then, after around 2 years of, 2 years of serving as a pastor, he didn't find a pastor work as meaningful as he wanted. So he started pursuing psychology. So he studied psychoanalysis at the Alanson White Institute in New York. So as you can see here, he's now pursuing psychology in a very formal direction. So he's actually studying for it. Then during his time there, he met Harry Sullivan. Harry Sullivan, we know he's the guy behind interpersonal theory. Then that Rollo May got a lot of that. Got inspired a lot from him from his interpersonal focus therapy, so he influenced his therapy. Then also met Fromm as faculty in the institute. Well, remember Fromm? He's the one whose theory was about humanity returning to nature and becoming civilized, gives them problems of freedom and such. So we'll see a little bit of Fromm's theory in Rollo May's theory as well. So yeah, that was during his time at the Alanson White Institute. In 1946, he opened a private practice. So yes, he opened a clinic and started pursuing a PhD. Then his PhD, that was also from the same institute, I believe. But while he was pursuing his PhD, he was struck with tuberculosis and spent 3 years in a sanitarium before he got his PhD in 1949. So yes, 3 years. So during his time in the sanitarium, recovering from tuberculosis, he was also studying getting his PhD. Then this is where he noticed where people have to make. This is where he gained a lot of insight that influenced his theory, wherein a lot of people who just accepted their disease were the ones who died, and those who fought against it were the ones who survived and got rid of the symptoms and got better. So I think a little bit of that played into his theory a little bit. Then Rollo May has actually published a few books working. So The Meaning of Anxiety, 1950, that was his PhD work. Man's Search for Himself, Love and Will, 1969, and the first one was 1953. So these are his big works that he's generally known for. Then he spent most of his life in the United States, being a visiting professor in different universities. Then in 1994, he died. Bye Rollo May. Let's go see what he taught us now with his main concepts. Okay, so So one of the biggest main concepts of Rollo is everyone is in a state of being in the world, or if translated from straight German is Dasein. So unity with the world. It means we're being connected all around. In fact, that's why there are dashes here in the being in the world. So rough terms, the person exists and lives with their environment. We are not disconnected from our environment. We exist alongside it. We are a part of it. Then this relationship we have with the environment is not tied physically. It's not only limited in the physical sense. It exceeds a more spiritual or psychological sense because, as we know, Rollo was a seminarian and dealt a lot with a lot of philosophy. Then there is oneness with the subject and the object and the person and world. So yes, everyone is connected. You are connected with your world, with everyone around you, and with nature, and you are connected with yourself. So what happens when you are not dasein? When you don't have dasein, when you are not being in the world, that leads to alienation from the world. No dasein. So alienation there, we have a little alien there. So according to Rollo, alienation from the world is what leads to anxiety and despair. And this anxiety and despair can manifest in different ways. And that can be in terms of separation from nature, us staying away from the forest and all that. We're becoming more and more reliant on our industrial world. A lack of meaningful interpersonal relationships. We have no friends. Or our relationships don't mean a lot to us. Next is alienation from one's authentic self. So this is alienation from ourselves. So as you can notice here, there are actually like three ways a person can be alienated from their world. So what does this imply? This implies that the original concept being in the world, Dasein, this exists in three modes. We are connected in the world in three ways. Three modes of being in the world, Dasein. And Rollo uh, claimed that this existing in the world, this being in the world, exists in these three terms. Umwelt, Mitwelt, Eigenwelt. So let's go into each one of them. So Umwelt, the first one, boom. Umwelt is the world of objects and things, the world of nature and natural law. Biological drives exist in the Umwelt, our hunger, our sleep. This is where death and birth occur. And the Umwelt is inescapable. We will always persist in the Umwelt. So the Umwelt for Rollo is sort of the physical world. This is our physical connection to the world. He biological drive, so physical. This deals with a lot of our body. This is our connection to nature, to the world, and more natural processes such as death and birth. This is where everything happens. We are connected in the Umwelt. So think of three separate dimensions that are all parallel to each other. So Umwelt. Let's go next to the next type of Dasein is the Mitwelt. So the Mitwelt is where we exist with other people. This is where interpersonal relationships lie. So it is the world of people. It is the world where we must relate to people as people. So if you exist in the Umwelt, everything is an object, and you are the subject. Everything else is just nothing to you. Everything else is like a static, immutable object that has no feelings or perceptions of its own. That is Umwelt on its own. But Mitwelt, in the Mitwelt, everything else, all the other people have their own subjective feelings, they have their own subjective perceptions. So that's where we deal with other people in the Mitwelt. So this is what relating to people as only things is a sign of living only in the Umwelt. So you have to relate to people as people so you can exist also in the Mitwelt. So this is also like a good example of this is sex versus love. So sex is seeing people as like physical gratification for yourself. That's living in the Umwelt. But love, especially Rollo May's version of love, it's we're gonna see that love is actually seeing the person as a person, caring for their development and such. So yes. So the Dasein other people must be respected as well. We respect them as another person. So yeah, like I said, everyone has Dasein. Everyone exists in the world. We must respect that connection to the world. So Umwelt, Mitwelt, there's a third one, Eigenwelt. So Eigenwelt is our relationship we have with ourself. To live here is to be we are aware of ourselves as human beings as they relate with other things and people, is to be aware of themselves as a human being. So basically over here is we know ourselves, we're self-aware. We are aware of our needs, our psychological needs, what we need in life, our goals, who we truly are. That is the Eigenwelt. So if we go back, we can see the alienation from the different worlds, our different Daseins can come from these different places. Separation from nature, that's the Umwelt, lack of meaning, interpersonal relationships. Mitwelt, and alienation from one's authentic self, Eigenwelt. Okay, so what's next? What's next after all these welts? So, according to Rollo, if you're healthy, if you're a healthily psychological person, you're a psychologically healthy person, you live in all the worlds. You live in the Mitwelt, Umwelt, and the Eigenwelt. Not worlds, but like the different modes of existence. Next. So, what happens when you have no Dasein? You are non-being. So what is non-being? Non-being is, yes, over here, it's the fear of not being in the world, fear of having no Dasein. Dasein. So, well, that Dasein comes from when we're birthed. So, the main form of non-being, like the ultimate form of non-being, of not being with the world, is death. Because Dasein, in the world, death, no longer in the world. But non-being can also take other forms, like, well, addiction, promiscuity, blind conformity, or generalized hostility towards others. So, this is sort of like a form of alienation from the world, but as you can see, there are like different ways of being alienated: addiction, alienating yourself, promiscuity, lack of that would be more equal to lack of interpersonal relationships, blind conformity, that's Eigenwelt, that's, not being in the world of yourself, generalized hostility towards others, that's not being connected to others well also. So fear of non-being makes us live defensively, receiving less in life, wrong choices, dimming self-awareness and individuality. However, we must, according to Rollo, we have to face non-being. Inevitably, we have to face it so that we can live a good life. So, yeah, that's what non-being means. We are scared of death, and to be scared of death, we seek other ways to to avoid death in a way. So yes, let's go to the next concept. So anxiety. Rollo has a different term of anxiety. According to Rollo, anxiety is, well, according to other psychological theories, anxiety is a sign of having neurosis, of having a disorder, psychopathology. But according to there are quotes from him: the subjective state of becoming aware that your existence can be destroyed, become nothing. Existence can be destroyed. That sounds a lot like non-being. So you experience anxiety, according to Rollo, when you know that non-being can happen. So this can happen in two ways. This can also manifest if a value important to your being is threatened as well. So because like the way Rollo sees it is, our values are a part of ourselves. They're a part of our existence. They are a part of our identity. Then if these values become changed in a certain any particular way, we're also gonna experience anxiety because, oh no, a part of me is gonna be destroyed. So this can either manifest as either normal or neurotic. So two kinds of anxiety according to Rollo: normal and neurotic anxiety. So normal anxiety, it happens to everyone who grows and changes values. Growing up, we're always going to change our values depending on the times, the culture, the personal, contextual situations we find ourselves in. So normal anxiety is what happens when we change our values. You did something wrong, you learned something, you learn something, and that your values change after that. So, Rollo May's direct words: normal anxiety is proportionate to the threat. It does not involve repression and can be used constructively. So, yes, we're constructing ourselves through normal anxiety. So this also occurs when gaining the insight that a big change is occurring. So, for example, graduating or making a big discovery. Without normal anxiety, no growth would occur. So when a big change is occurring, you experience normal anxiety when a big change is occurring. So yes, graduating. Everyone felt different when they were graduating. A big change was gonna happen in their life. Things will. I use this picture here because, according to Rollo May, the people who were experiencing, who saw the first nuclear bomb tests, they were witnessing a big change in like how the world would work. The world would be very different with the advent of these nuclear bombs. They're gonna be, that's what he's saying. Things will not be the same. He's experiencing normal anxiety. Okay, so let's go back a bit. Yeah, okay, that's good. So the other type of anxiety, neurotic anxiety. So this is sort of like a direct opposite to the normal anxiety. It's a reaction which is disproportionate to the threat, so meaning it's a lot bigger than the threat. It involves repression and other forms of intrapsychic conflicts. It's managed by blocking off activity and awareness. In no contrast to growth from normal anxiety, this stems from an unflinching adherence to one's values, no growth. Okay, so let's go to these last two things. You block off activity and awareness. Awareness, for Rollo May, is being aware of the different worlds. So this is how neurotic anxiety can lead to that non-being, that alienation from the different worlds, right? Yes. So, and remember how we said anxiety is when your values are being destroyed, or when your values may change. Neurotic anxiety is you adhere to your original values, even though they might not allow you to deal with the situation that's giving you anxiety properly. So you could either repress or just block it out altogether, whatever situation is giving you that anxiety, so that your values don't change. Your values stay the same. And if you don't change, you don't stay the same, no growth. So normal anxiety, good. Neurotic anxiety, bad. You become paralyzed. You can't move. There we go. So what's the difference? Now, Rollo May introduced another concept here called guilt. So, anxiety is what happens when the problem comes to you. It's you're encountering, douche, and then it's like when you hit it. It can either be normal or neurotic. So it happens when it happens. Guilt is sort of like the after effect of dealing with anxiety. Guilt for Rollo May is when people deny their potentialities, fail to accurately perceive the needs of others, be oblivious to their dependence on the natural world. So, well, stems from lack of awareness in one of the different modes of existence. So, as we can see here again, guilt, sort of like anxiety and non-being, it's tied to not being in the world. It's tied to not being in the Dasein, in the Mitwelt, the Umwelt. When people deny their potentialities, Eigenwelt. Fail to accurately perceive the needs of others, Mitwelt. Be oblivious to their dependence on the natural world, that would be Umwelt. Yeah, so guilt, there's a difference. Guilt is sort of like the long-term effect of being not being connected. So guilt, let's look at the different types of guilt depending on the world. So yes, there are two types of guilt. There's three types: Umwelt guilt, Mitwelt guilt, Eigenwelt guilt. Eigenwelt guilt. So Umwelt guilt, if we remember Umwelt, natural world, the environment, our connection with nature. This is also referred to as separation guilt because we are separated from nature, lack of their Dasein with nature. So, according to Rollo May, that is very prevalent in industrial societies because industrial societies are the direct opposite of nature next to societies. So, yes, that's Umwelt guilt. Next is Mitwelt guilt. As we remember, Mitwelt is our interpersonal relationships with other people. It stems from our inability to perceive the world of others. Now, we can never truly perceive the needs of others because they are subjective beings. There's no way to truly know their subjective needs. But according to Rollo May, when we can't perceive the needs of others, it does violence to the true identity of others, and it makes our relations with them feel inadequate, leads to more guilt, but it cannot be avoided. It is the result of our individuality. So, yes, because we're individuals, we're all different individuals, we are subjective beings in the world. We cannot truly know the subjective nature of everyone else, their subjective needs. So there is going to be conflict there. We're never going to know. But myth built guilt, that's always going to happen. So all these, for Rollo May, all these guilts will exist within us. We can't take the guilt away. This is just what happens when we lack awareness, and we're always going to lack a little bit of awareness in a certain area, in a certain mode of existence. I can build guilt. So when we deny or fail to fulfill our potentials, none of us can fulfill all our potentials. Or yes, fear. This is akin to the fear of doing our best. So not all of us can do what we want to. None of us can graduate with honors. None of us can get an amazing job. Not all of us can have a great house. Then, so as you can say, there's nothing we can really do with this. It will always be there. We just have to face it and go about our lives as we do. Eigenwealth guilt. Next is oh yes, this is the next concept. We're done with guilt. Let's go to Rollo May's next concept. So not all of these concepts connect very well with each other, but some do, some others. It's very all over the place. So next concept is intentionality. So intentionality is what influences our choices. It allows us to make decisions about the future. Then it leads us to perform actions. Actions, intentionality. And intentionality will lead to more action. It connects the subject and the object. Subject, me. Object, everything else around me. I have a pen. What is my intentionality to do with the pen? I could either write on a paper with it. I could put the pen in my mouth. I could throw it away. So the way Rollo May explains intentionality is like it's the different types of actions we can do to an object. Then it bridges us with that object. Yes, so there are different ways. The intentionality can exist in different ways. So I use the example here of a bucket of water, and then the intentionality can be different for different people. He could like pour the water on himself, or look into the bucket of water, or wash or make a mop with it. So that's intentionality for Rollo May. Now, next topic for Rollo May is his very. This is one of his. I think this is one of his most biggest contributions to psych. Is he gave definite definitions for what care, love, and will are. So care versus love. So what's the difference for care versus love? Now, let's first go to care. There's a very big difference in care. There are two types of care. To take care of and take care for. Take care of is, let's say, let's using the modes of existence again. Take care of is existing, is taking care of a person in the Umwelt, taking care of their physiological needs, taking care of their food, their bathing, their place to sleep. Take care for is recognizing, yes, the words I use here, recognizing another human being as a human being, taking note of that they are a subjective being as well. You take care of them. The state in which something does matter, it matters to you. It's not just some. It's not a physical process. You care for that person. It's also an active process. You can't just passively care for a person. Now, what's the difference of care versus love? Care is required for love. So before you can love a person, you have to say they matter to you. You have to have that outside physical care for them. So as we remembered, if no care, if we go back to the sex versus love thing, care would be. I don't think there's care in just looking at a person physically, sex-wise. So care is required for love. Love is affirming another person's value and development as much as their own. So I think this is like the main difference between care and love. Care is thinking a person matters, like you respect them as another subjective being, while love is actually affirming their value. Well, similar, but you also put value into their development as much as your own. So their development in terms of value is equal to yours as well. So you want them to grow and yes. Now, according to them, according to Rollo, you also delight in their presence. So I think that's also another thing. Care. There's no like delighting in the presence and care. You could care for another person, but not truly delight in their presence. That's there are quotations from Rollo, delight in their presence. So if there's no care, no love, there's only empty sentimentality and temporary arousal. Temporary arousal, that's the the just the sexual thing. Empty sentimentality. What's an example of that? You think of going to a party and you just give a gift to a person just because you're going to the party. There's no care for that person. There's no, here, I got you something very important to you because it's from me. So, empty sentimentality. Hi, that's it. That's empty. It's sentimental. Okay, care versus love. So what's next? What's next? What's how does he go? Now he goes into will. Will. So according to Rollo, there's this other concept called will, the capacity to organize oneself so that movement in a certain direction or goal will take place. So yeah, will, we use that. We use that photo. It contrasts the concept of wishing in many aspects. So I think will here is similar to motivation, or you're able to direct yourself to do a specific action. Now, there's a very big difference between contrast the concept of wishing in many aspects and will, where they're different and they're direct opposites. So it's a conscious process. Wish is unconscious. I think if we want to know what wish is, we should look at the old Freudian aspects of wish, where the id wishes. Then will is there's a possibility of choice. We have a choice to. It leads to the us organizing ourselves to go in a specific direction in our life will lead to choices. Wishes don't involve that choice. Then will, it according to Rome, permits the wish. It allows our wishes to continue running great risks. So what does this mean? Our wishes can be as big as they are, but without will, wishes don't really become real. Okay, how do we do this? You wish you want to get a good job, so you will yourself to gain attributes that would get you a good job. You do the direction, you arrange, you motivate yourself. While wish is the original longing for that. It gives warmth and richness to the will. So will exists for the wish. Then if there was no wish, your will won't really mean that much to you. So that's important to know. Now, will, how is this very related to care and love? We'll go see this. We'll go see this in the next slide. So love and will. Love and will. This is very good. It's very some of the concepts are linking with each other now. So according to Rollo, society has separated love and will from one another. Love is associated with sensual love or sex, lacks commitment. Will means determination or willpower, which is kind of self-serving. So we must connect both of them. Historically, though, Rollo says biologically they are separate from the beginning. What does that mean? Love comes first, as needs are always met. So when you're a baby and you're sucking for milk, your needs are always met. You always get the milk. Your butt always gets wiped after you poop in your diaper. Will develops once needs being met has resistance, separating them. Will is the first time you can't get milk. The first time you have to pick something up. That's will. I have to get that thing. Thinking in the guise of a baby, the lens of a baby, because they're originally separated. A baby needs to get something off the table. They use their will to get that. They arrange themselves. Then yes, love is the original there because they feel love because all their needs are taken care of. So according to Rollo, we have to unite love and will so that we organize ourselves in a certain direction so we can best love someone. Now, according to Rollo, love and will stem from care. They necessitate choice. They imply action and give responsibility. I think that all sort of makes sense. We have a choice to love. We have a choice to will. We and loving a person implies action. We our action the action is to love them, and it gives us responsibility to love them, and we use that will to fulfill that responsibility. So these concepts are all very intertwined with each other. So oh yeah, okay. So there are forms of love. This is actually one of Rollo, I think, one of his most cited works, Forms of Love. So you unite love and will, and you'll get forms of love. So lots of different types of love, lots of different types of love. So the first form of love, according to Rollo, is sex. Sex. So this is the most basic kind of love, satisfied through sexual intercourse. It is, according to him, the power of procreation, a drive that perpetuates race. The source of a human being's most intense pleasure and most pervasive anxiety, focused mostly on pleasure. So this is what it is, sex. Sex is like one of the first forms of love. Now, according to May, he saw sex as having a waxing and waning significance in society. So there were times where sex was taken for granted, where, like, for example, ancient times, people would have sex all the time, and that gave a lot of humans. Meanwhile, in the Victorian era, Charles Dickens, Shakespeare, I believe, sex was like, suppressed. No one can talk about sex. And right now, I think sex has a pretty good significance in our society now. So yes, it waxes and wanes. So sex is the first type of love. Love form number 2, eros. So the psychological desire of procreation through an enduring union with a loved one, making love. So eros is like sex, but you want to stay with that person forever. Make an enduring union with them. So focus on both partners experiencing delight and passion. So it's regarded as the salvation of sex. So Rollo May kind of saw sex as something basal, something very primitive, But because of the love from Eros sort of fixes it gives sex purpose, because procreation, and then through that procreation we create a enduring union with another person. It's important. Eros fixes sex. Now another type of love is, those were the romantic types of love. Now we go to philia, number 3, love form number 3. So it's the foundation of Eros. You can't have Eros without philia. Then philia is an intimate, non-sexual relationship between two people. So you and your friends, you have philia love. Can't be rushed, must be developed. Example, siblings, lifelong friends. So yes, you can't rush the type of love concerned with philia. You have to go through something. It has to be developed over time. If you look at the examples over here, you start as babies, you go through big adventures with each other. You could be stepbrothers who've been living with each other for a while. So that's philia. It forms, you love each other after a long time. So philia does not require that we do anything for the beloved except accept him, be with him, and enjoy him. Friendship in the simplest, most direct terms. Friendship. Philia is friendship. Next type of love. Love for agape. So agape is required to feel philia as well. So we have sort of like a hierarchical structure over here. You have to have agape first. So to have agape, you have to have esteem for the other, concern for the other's welfare beyond what one can gain. You have to care more of themselves. You have to care more for the other person, even though they can't do much for you. So it's sort of akin to disinterested or altruistic love, and does not depend on any characteristics or behaviors that another person has. So in a way, it's unconditional. So this is akin to God's love for humanity, or a mother's love for her baby. It's unconditional. It doesn't matter what's going on with the other person. You just love them regardless. So those are the 4 types of love. Let's go now to Rollo May's other terms. So, hold on. So healthy adult relationships blend all 4 forms of love. So they all use all of that. Use sex, eros, philia, and agape all together. So yes, it requires self-affirmation and the assertion of oneself. Before you gotta love someone, you gotta assert yourself. You gotta self-affirm yourself. We'll go into this a bit later. It requires tenderness, affirmation of the other, relaxing competition, self-abnegation at times in the interest of loved one. So what does that mean? It means you have to put your loved one's interest before yours. And the age-old virtues of mercy and forgiveness. So that's what you need to have love. Now we'll go into this third little bullet in a bit. It requires self-affirmation and the assertion of oneself. This leads us to our next topic. Freedom versus destiny. Freedom versus destiny. That's one of Rollo May's most... it's a very vague concept, but let's go into it. Freedom. What's freedom for Rollo May? It is understanding our destiny. But freedom versus destiny? How does that make sense? Well, let's go. Let's continue. It is the possibility of changing. If we have freedom, if we have the possibility to change, to do whatever we want, there are quotations from his writings. Being able to harbor different possibilities in one's mind, even though it is not clear at the moment how to act. You have to be able to if you have freedom, you have to be open to the different possibilities in your life. Now, freedom, different possibilities, that will lead to normal anxiety, because as we remember, normal anxiety is what happens when change happens to yourself, change to your values, change to your life. And freedom is being open to change. So freedom can exist in two forms: existential freedom and essential freedom. Now, existential freedom, it's basically what I like to call basic human rights. Freedom of action, doing. We're allowed to do whatever we want in the guise of our freedom. I'm putting some examples here. We're allowed to rent a car. We're allowed to go to school. We're allowed to open a business. We have the ability to make choices and be free to act out those choices. So a lot of us in free countries have these existential freedoms. We can say whatever we want. Countries where they control your free speech, not so much. The other type of essential freedom is a little bit more vague. It's the freedom of being. It's sort of composed of, it's an inner freedom. And I think this little note encapsulates it the most. Destiny resists against essential freedom. This should take us to what is exactly destiny for Rollo May. Resist against essential freedom. Essential freedom means we're locked to our destiny. We are locked. We can only exist within our destiny. Then what's destiny then for Rollo May? Freedom versus destiny. Understanding our destiny. Yeah. Well, what's so important about destiny? So destiny, according to Rollo May, it is the design of the universe speaking through the design of each one of us. Our ultimate destiny is death. And it includes other properties like our intelligence, our gender, size, strength, and hereditary illness. So it includes a lot of our different traits, our different cultural traits. It is the things we are born into, like our culture and our psychology. We are bound by our destiny, but we make choices on how we respond to it. And because of this, it's inextricably linked to our freedom. So destiny isn't our ultimate destiny is death. But with Rollo May's theory, our destiny is a lot of other things as well. Our destiny is us being masterful students in psychology. Our destiny is sort of like, for Rollo May, a bunch of describing modifiers. There are a bunch of describing points on how a person is defined. Then, how then does essential freedom, we can't get rid of it. It means the essential freedom is always going against our destiny. Because destiny is sort of like it bounds us within our destiny, and our essential freedom it's hard to get essential freedom because it's being kept in by our destiny. So how does this make sense? Let's look at a circle over here. It's a pretty simple circle. This freedom here, this orange circle, is our freedom. We can do whatever we want within the circle, but this circle has a very clear border, and that border is our destiny. What's healthy for us is a psychologically healthy person will continuously push the boundaries of their freedom and deal with their destiny. That's facing their destiny. So we have infinite freedom within this little circle, but we're always pushing against our destiny. What's our destiny? Yes, illness, strength, size, modifiers describing describing things, adjectives to describe us. And our ultimate destiny is death. We will all go to die. That's our ultimate destiny. I think it makes sense in a way, but he should use the terms used are sort of confusing, but in a way it does make sense. So that is freedom versus destiny. What's next? What's next for Rollo May? Myths. So Rollo May has this very. This seems sort of disconnected with the rest of his theory. A lot of the other concepts connected with each other, but myths are also important. So according to May, myths have a powerful effect on individuals, cultures, and they unify society. They aren't falsehoods, but conscious and unconscious belief systems that explain personal and social problems. Now, Western civilization is in need of myths, and the act of forgetting myths has led to people seeking meaning in cults, drugs, and popular culture. So myths, got some myths over here. Got Beowulf, Prometheus, because I think he's the one who got eaten by the birds, and Hercules. So why are myths so important? I Myths, they connect people because of their shared meaning. Myths tackle a lot of human problems. So yes, people communicate. According to May, people communicate on two levels: through rationalistic language, where truth takes precedence over who is communicating. This is our normal language. While myths, the total human experience is accounted for, and it transcends the concrete situation. So myths, they're a good example of a myth is Oedipus. Well, this is what Feist says. It deals with a lot of existential crises common to everyone, like birth, separation from parents, and independence. These are all themes that humans growing up have to deal with. And through the myths, we sort of relate to them, relate to these concepts. These myths are how to deal with these existential crises that we all deal with. So myths are very shared within cultures. Cultures like some myths even overlap between different cultures. So this is where May's theory of myths sort of connects with Jung's concept of a collective unconscious, where myths are shared stories or experiences of all humans, and Jung's collective unconscious is very similar with a collected experience. Then Jung's concept of archetypes, as when embraced can bring new awareness and reality to people. Rollo May shares the sentiment with his myths. So if we just embrace the tales of Hercules or whatever, or Beowulf or Oedipus, we're better able to bring awareness to our existence. We can learn better. We have a better sense of reality. So myths with May. That's he puts a lot of significance into myths. Next is okay. So how May's theory, it's very existential, not a lot of science involved. But how does he view clinical psychology? How does he deal with people with disorders? Psychopathology. So according to him, psychopathology, it stems from a lack of communication or an inability to know others and to share oneself with them. Sounds a lot like being disconnected with the Mitwelt. Psychologically disturbed people deny their destiny and thus lose their freedom. So what does this mean? If you lose your destiny, you lose your freedom. That is essentially what he said. Symptoms are not used to regain freedom, but to renounce it. So as we said, freedom is we have the ability to do whatever we want. But because people don't want their destiny, they deny the tributes given to them by their destiny. Because they deny that, they lose their freedom. They can't do what they want to do. Instead of using their freedom to do whatever they want, they adopt symptoms, neurotic symptoms, like whatever psychological symptoms we're familiar with. So symptoms narrow the world to where it is easy to cope with. So if you have freedom, you have to cope with the entire world. Symptoms make it easier, like neurotic symptoms, psychological symptoms of disorders, make it easier to cope with the world. Alienation from the world makes people feel insignificant, which leads to apathy and a state of diminished consciousness. So alienation from the world, disconnected from the Mitwelt, Umwelt, Eigenwelt, it makes them feel apathy and leads to diminished Diminished consciousness. Diminished consciousness, so you're not aware of the world, and now you're gonna be even less connected to the world. There we go. So psychopathology. How does he deal with people with psychopathology? How do we deal with Rollo May's psychotherapy? So remember, Rollo May was not very clinically focused in his theory at all. He he should not, according to him, should not psychotherapy should not reduce anxiety and guilt, but make people feel more human, embrace their humanity a lot better, expand their consciousness to be able to make better choices. So better choices within their freedom, because we have the freedom to make whatever choices we want. But Rollo May, there is an ideal way to make choices. Then the purpose of this is to set people free, experience their freedom, help people experience their existence. This last second last one's purpose is to set people free, experience their freedom. Remember, he said that psychopathology stems when people deny their freedom. They deny their destiny, so they don't have any freedom. They lose it. They adopt symptoms. If they experience their freedom, then according to him, symptoms will go away. Next page of psychotherapy is his type of psychotherapy doesn't exactly focus entirely on symptoms, as he sees symptoms like psychological problems as ways of avoiding a person's freedom. When people become more free, they realize their freedom. They go against their destiny. They face their destiny in the face, and they regain their freedom. And according to him, usually when this is the case, their neurotic symptoms disappear. Neurotic anxiety and guilt become normal anxiety and guilt. So though they become once a patient will experience their freedom, they become better. Their neurotic symptoms go away, as you can see here on the photo. Next is psychotherapy. Okay, so in terms of technique-wise, in terms of practice, Rollo May never gave any specific directions, no special techniques that were unique to the existential psychology field. According to him, therapists only have themselves and must form a one-on-one connection with a patient, which allows them to be more aware of themselves. So you have to make the connection to make the client more aware of themselves. This again deals with the Mitfeld and Eigenwelt. Mitfeld, one-on-one connection, make patients more aware of themselves. Eigenwelt. There we go. So in terms of therapy, he utilizes his connection better. So if you look, so symptoms are running out of freedom, running away from freedom. So what he wants them to do is to challenge patients to confront destiny, experience despair, anxiety, and guilt. Only through this can patients regain their freedom if they confront their destiny. Confront, what's destiny again? Destiny is like the different adjectives we are born into, the different describers of our life. Ultimate destiny is death, so we have to confront our death. So, but we also have to be open to a patient's subjective world. So this is, of course, because Mitfeld, we have to see other people as subjective beings. We have to be open to their subjective perceptions. In practice, however, like what May would do, it's not that different from other psychologists at this time. In practice, he would ask questions and delve into early childhood and suggest possible meanings of current behavior. So very similar to what other psychologists were doing at the time. And okay, so to summarize, main purpose of May's psychotherapy is to make patients more aware of themselves, help them make connections with others, Mitwelt, and confront destiny and embrace freedom. Confront destiny, because destiny is what puts us in a box and gives us borders, and embrace our freedom, do whatever we want within our destiny. So that is Rollo May's existential psychology. The end. Okay, guys, let's stop recording.